The type of poetry in this video is what we call as lyric poem. Lyric poem is a comparatively short, non-narrative poem in which a single speaker presents a state of mind or an emotional state. Lyric poetry retains some of the elements of song which is said to be its origin. Subcategories of the lyric are, for example, elegy, ode, sonnet, and dramatic monologue. As you can see from the video title, we will be focusing on Shakespeare's sonnet, which is one of the subcategories of the lyric poetry. Wait, what is sonnet again? Well, a sonnet is a one-stanza, 14-line poem written in iambic pentameter. Now what's an iambic pentameter? Well, iambic pentameter is a line of verse with 5 metrical feet, each consisting of one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable. Let's take Shakespeare's popular verse as an example. To be or not to be. There, iambic pentameter. Now back to the sonnet. The sonnet is derived from the Italian word sonetto, meaning a little sound or song. The most common type is known as the English or Shakespearean sonnet, the one we are presenting now, but there are several other types, which is Petrarchan, Spenserian, and Miltonic. Sonnets share these characteristics. The first one is, they have 14 lines. All sonnets have 14 lines, which can be broken down into 4 sections called quatrains. Next, a strict rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme of a Shakespearean sonnet, for example, is A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and G, G. Finally, it is written in iambic pentameter. Sonnets are written in iambic pentameter, a poetic meter with 10 beats per line made up of alternating unstressed and stressed syllables. A sonnet can be broken into 4 sections called quatrains. The first quatrain should establish the subject of the sonnet. It includes 4 lines and rhyme scheme A, B, A, B. The second quatrain should develop the sonnet's theme, and the number of lines include 4 and rhyme scheme C, D, C, D. The third quatrain should run off the sonnet's theme, and the number of lines is 4 and the rhyme scheme is E, F, E, F. And the last quatrain should act as a conclusion to the sonnet. The number of lines are only 2 and the rhyme scheme is G, G. I wonder who is the first poet to popularize this poetry type. Let's find it out together. Apparently, it has been said that the first poet who popularized the sonnet is Francesco Petrarch, who was born in July 20, 1304 in Italy. He is an Italian scholar, poet, and humanist whose poems addressed to Laura, an idealized beloved which contributed to the Renaissance development of lyric poetry. Petrarch is often credited as the sonnet's inventor. However, he really only perfected the form, and he introduced innovations that allowed poets to use language in a very expressive way. His poems dedicated to Laura were very influential, and it popularized the writing of love poetry in Italy. Petrarch's verse became the model for lyrical poets for many centuries. His sonnets, known as the Petrarchan sonnet, were very popular in Elizabethan England. Petrarch clearly influenced Shakespeare, and he developed his own style of the sonnet known as the Shakespearean sonnet, based on Petrarch's verse. Though Petrarch did not invent the sonnet form, he surely made it popular.
Actually, sonnet tradition was swept through Renaissance from Petrarch in 14th century. Meanwhile, in England, it was introduced in 60th century, which is during Elizabethan era. Shakespeare was favored amongst the royals. Queen Elizabeth I, who enjoyed plays, dances, and other entertainment, was very fond of Shakespeare's play. Instead of expressing worshipful love for an almost goddess-like yet unobtainable female love object, as Petrarch, Dante, and Philip Sidney had done, Shakespeare introduced a young man. He also introduces the Dark Lady, who is no goddess. Shakespeare explored themes such as lust, homoeroticism, misogyny, infidelity, and acrimony in ways that may challenge, but which also open new terrain for the sonnet form. Since in Renaissance having mistresses was allowed, Shakespeare also wrote about mistress. Sonnets 1 to 126 is called the Fair Youth Sonnets. Do you remember that Sonnets 1 to 126 is called the Fair Youth Sonnets? It is actually addressed to a young man, socially superior and own magnificent beauty. In Renaissance society, men are valued differently from women. Men have the more power and had significant role in society as compared to women. William Shakespeare also wrote sonnets 127 to 152, and this sequence is about the Dark Lady. How does the Dark Lady looks like? Actually, the Dark Lady is not aristocratic, young, beautiful, intelligent, or chaste. Her complexion is muddy, her breath reeks, and she is ungainly when she walks. Actually, during this era, the society favored fair hair and light complexions. Each sonnets in sonnets 1 to 152 are related to each other, meaning that the young boy and the dark lady actually related to each other.
Okay, let's take a look at the poem structure. For Sonnet 8 and Sonnet 12 by William Shakespeare, both are 14-line sonnet that follows the pattern. This means that it is made up of 3 quatrains or set of 4 lines, and 1 concluding couplet or set of rhyming lines. The poem follows a consistent rhyme scheme that conforms to the pattern of AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, and GG, and it is written in iambic pentameter. This means that each line contains 5 sets of 2 beats, known as metrical feet. The first is unstressed, and the second stressed. It sounds something like dadam, dadam. The last 2 lines of the sonnets are rhyming pair, known as a couplet. They often bring with them a turn or volta in the poem. They are sometimes used to answer a question posed in the previous 12 lines, or present new ideas, or contradict old ideas, shift the perspective, or even change speakers. In the case of this specific poem, the final 2 lines get to the main point of the poem. They leave behind the metaphor and get to the speaker's main point that the fair youth is going to be forgotten unless he does something to preserve his legacy.
Can you guess the message behind the poem just by reading through it?
Let me summarize the meaning of Sonnet 8 for you. In Sonnet 8, the poet empathizes with the subject, who is against the idea of marriage. The subject of the sonnet is a young man who is chided for choosing to be single. In this poem, the poet compares music with marriage to express his ideas. Let's look more closely at the meaning line by line, shall we? In line 1, the speaker asks why a person who appears perfect and harmonious as a piece of music should be made sad by listening to music. The speaker is curious because listening to music should be joyful, yet it makes him sad. So, the speaker says in line 2 that sweet things enjoyed are inherently harmonious together. Well, that should be. Then in line 3, the speaker asks the person why he loves the music that he listens to, though it does not give him pleasure. Is it because he takes delight in things that cause him pain? In lines 5 to 6, the speaker compares the united and harmonious sounds to blissful marriage. The speaker also implies that the person is not in harmony himself because he has remained single and has no chord against which to resonate in harmony. So, line 7 tells that the harmony sounds gently reprimand the subject who is in confusion to play his part as he should, which is to be married. The speaker states that the subject keeps making mistakes and miscue the parts of the melody by attempting to play solo. That means he does not play his part to bear children as he is a single man. Line 9 and 10 implies that the double strings in musical instruments provide a richer tone as they reverberate against each other in mutual ordering and harmony, which signifies marriage that brings harmony and joy to the couple. In line 11 and 12, the speaker then compares the string in their mutual harmony to a happy family, as the speaker is suggesting the subject to get married and live happily with his family. The family are united in harmony as the strings of the instrument produce a harmonious tune. Then, the speaker says in line 13, the song is speechless, but it is united in its harmony. Its melodic line seems to be one, which reflects unity. In the last line, the speaker tells the subject that he will turn out to be effectively nothing, unhappy, and not harmony if he remains single. The end. Well, I feel kinda offended. Just a little. You want to know about the meaning of Sonnet 12 too? Okay, let me tell you about it. In Sonnet 12, the poet presents to the subject series of images of mortality that suggest the passing of time, the aging, and decaying of living things. Looking at line 1, the speaker reveals that he always counts the time by looking at the clock. Then he compares the brightness of the day as brave to the darkness of the night as hideous in line 2. It shows that the speaker sees how the day changes to night and how the time has passed. Line 3 signifies his best pastime are fading as he is getting older and dying. Then he describes one who is losing his youth has his black hair turning white as he becomes older. Then the leafless trees are described as barren, which suggests waste and futility and the destructive processes of age and decay through time. Line 6 continues from line 5 when the speaker asks where do the herd or animals will take shade from the heat if the trees are leafless. After that, the speaker tells in line 7 that the beauty of the summer is now gone when the crops are harvested and bound together, which means the beauty of youth will be gone as time passes. Then, line 8 reveals the harvested crops are being taken away in a cart, which also symbolizes a dead man in a coffin being carried away on a cart at his funeral. Meanwhile, the white and bristly beard may also imply that the man died due to old age. In line 9, the speaker begins to question the permanence and reality of the youth's beauty. He suggests in line 10 that the youth also will decline and decay like all things over time, because nothing lasts forever. The speaker realizes in line 11 that the sweet and beautiful things will unconsciously lose themselves and fade away. As one thing dies, other things quickly grow to replace it. It is in their wake that others grow. And there is nothing one can do to fight time and defend oneself from getting old. In the last line, the speaker suggests one to have children to defy the time's brutality, because continuing one's life through another is the only way to gain immortality and outlive time. The end. Well, the time moves slowly, but it passes real quickly, huh?
The end rhyme for Sonnet 12 is A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, and the couplet, the last two lines is G G. Meanwhile, the I rhyme is head and beard. It looks like it's rhyming, but it actually have different pronunciation. For example, head and beard. It have the two words have different pronunciation, right? Alright, now let's moving on to imagery. The first imagery that we will look into is visual imagery. The first example is "And see the brave day sunk in hideous night." This particular line shows the visual image of how the day sunk in hideous night. Apart from that, we also have the line "When I behold the violet past prime." Violet here is actually represent a flower. Violet past prime is flower that is wilting. So William Shakespeare give the readers a visual image of flower wilting. The phrase "summer's green" in the line "and summer's green all girded up in sheaves" shows the visual imagery because it shows the image of leaves and trees during summer. Last example of visual imagery is the phrase "white and bristly beard" in the line "born in the beer with white and bristly beard." White and bristly shows the visual image of beard. We also have kinesthetic imagery. For example, "and sable curls all silvered over with white." The verb curls show movement. We also have organic imagery in the line "since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake." The phrase "sweets and beauties" represents emotions. Let's look at the alliteration. In the first line, we have the repetition of the consonant C and the consonant TH, and also the consonant T. For example, count, clock, the, that, tells, and time. We also have the repetition consonant P in the line 3, past prime. In 8th line, we have the repetition W and B. We have with white and we have bristly beard. In line 10, we have the repetition of the consonant TH or the sounds the. For example, that, though, and the.
In line 11, we have the repetition S, since sweets. And the last line, we have the repetition of the consonant BR, which is breed brave.
Now let's talk about the metaphor. In this poem, the author used brave day sunk in hideous night metaphor, which refers to the setting of the sun. Next, the author also used born on the bier with white and bristled beard, which refers to the whiskery growth around the grain. In the sonnet's final bit of personification, the narrator elects that nothing against time's sight can make defense, save breed to brave him when he takes the hands, suggesting that the only way to remain alive despite time is through bearing children to live on in one's place. So the author described time to have the ability to make defense.
Sonnet 8 also has the same rhyme with Sonnet 12, which is A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, and couplet G G. Alright, let's moving on to I rhyme. Can you see the quatrain? Yes, we have I rhyme, ear and bear. It looks rhyming, right? But if you realize it has actually different pronunciation. First, ear. Second, bear. Can you differentiate it? Next, in the couplet, we have one and none. It looks rhyming, but the pronunciation are different. One, none. In Sonnet 8, William Shakespeare used many auditory imagery. For example, music to hear, why hear though music sadly? Music to hear shows the auditory imagery. Next auditory imagery is well-tuned sounds in the line, if the true concord of well-tuned sounds. Well-tuned sounds clearly shows auditory imagery. Next we have by unions married do often thine ear. Unions married here actually represents the sound of the bell when wedding ceremony begin. Next example, we have pleasing note do sing in the line, who all in one pleasing note do sing. It shows auditory imagery, which evoke the reader's sense of hear. And for the last example, we have speechless song in the line, whose speechless song being many, seeming one. The phrase speechless song shows auditory imagery. Apart from auditory imagery, William Shakespeare also used many organic imagery in these particular sonnets. The first example, we can say that why hearest thou music sadly? It shows that the music heard sadly by the persona. It deals with emotions, that's why it shows organic imagery. Next example, we have why love thou that which thou received not gladly. The word loved and gladly shows emotion. Next example, we have or else receive with pleasure, find annoy. The word pleasure and annoy clearly shown example of organic imagery because it deals with emotions. Next we have in singleness the part that thou should bear. Singleness shows the single or lonely, the emotion of being lonely. Last example, we have sweets with sweets were not, joy delights in joy. The phrase sweets with sweets and joy delights in joy shows the emotions of the writers. Let's look at the kinesthetic imagery. Alright, strikes each in each by mutual ordering. The phrase strikes each in each shows the movement. It actually shows the movement of instruments that striking each in each. Now, the last imagery is visual imagery. For example, in the line resembling sire and child and happy mother. Sire, child, and happy mother represents a complete family that have father, child, and mother. Let's see the alliteration in this poem. The first example, as you can see in the first line, the repetition of the consonant H here and here's. In the second line, we have the repetition of the consonant S and J, which is sweets, sweets, joy, joy. In the third line, we have the repetition of the consonant W and TH. For example, why, which, though, and that. And in the eighth line, we have the repetition of the consonant TH, the, that, and though. In line 13, we have the repetition of the consonant S, which are speechless, song, and seeming. And the last line, we have the repetition TH, this, the, and though.
Okay, for the metaphor, the last two lines in the poem is the speaker's main point, which is also a metaphor. That means the fair youth is going to be forgotten unless he does something to preserve his legacy. For the personification, in the line whose speechless song, the author describes song to have the ability to stay silent or speechless.